Sabah al-Khair, good morning, dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni, and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English-language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Good morning, our dear friends and listeners to Palestine Remembered. Another week has gone by. Rob, how are you?
And I'm very well. And just talking about our listeners, I have been inundated by birthday wishes this week because my birthday was on Wednesday. So very, very happy that our listeners seem to be quite fond of us. So thank you very much, everybody.
Only 25 years old? 26.
26 now.
Yeah.
Don't be ridiculous.
I'm not sure we're counting this year, are we? This COVID year. I'm not aging by a year this year.
Well, I haven't counted for 12 years, but people, as you're going bald and grey, they don't buy it anymore.
Now, Rob, we've got a fantastic guest joining us from Brussels today, live from Brussels. Mr. Frank Barat.
Hi, Frank. How are you?
Hi, Rob. Happy birthday, Rob. Sorry I missed your 26th birthday.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I know that you've made the effort to come on tonight because it's my birthday. So that's fantastic as well. Palestine keeps giving.
It was all planned.
Now, Frank is I've been following Frank's work for quite a while. He's done so much on Palestine. Also done the Russell Tribunal, which I'd like to have a basic chat about at some stage. But what we like, Frank, is if you could just tell us, how did you get into Palestine? Did you fall into it? Did you study it? How did it sort of get to this point that you're at today?
First, thanks for having me, Rob, and shukran ktir, Nasser. It's a pleasure, and I think it's really important to keep talking about Palestine, and that's why your show is very important. Because in the world we're living in, it seems Palestine sometimes seems to be less of an issue. Where the three of us know that Palestine is still the issue, of course. So to answer your question, and that's obviously a question that you get a lot of the time, and I guess you probably get the same question, Rob, right? When you're not, at least as far as I'm concerned, a Jewish of Arab descent or Muslim in any way. It's a question you often get, but in a way, and anyway, I've tried to answer it the best way I can. I always try to find like the great answer, but I don't think there's one. I think as far as I'm concerned, I've always been politically interested, even if it's sort of in a passive way for years. I was mainly reading books, watching documentaries and stuff. But I think it was I can't remember now, like early 2000 or something. I was living in London, and the more I read, and actually it was Chomsky that I read at the time.
I had a feeling it might be Chomsky.
The more I realized that Palestine kept coming up, right, as a crucial issue to understand, in a way, like the Middle East, but also sort of the world we live in. So I joined the Palestine Solidarity chapter in my in my neighborhood, which was Brixton at the time. And, we got more and more involved. We're just, doing like little meetings, demonstrations, giving leaflets to people and stuff. And I got a friend of mine who was a physician told me that ICAD, which is the Israeli Committee Against House Demolition, was organizing a 10 days study tour of Israel and Palestine. And I jumped, at the opportunity. So I spent 10 days visiting, organization, charities, activists, both in Palestine 48 and in the West Bank. We didn't go to Gaza, and this changed everything. I don't know about you, Rob, but once you've been, I love like a quote by Arundhati Roy, and she says like, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Right. And that's exactly what it did for me. Yeah. It was like, damn, now that's it. I cannot just go back to my normal life. I've got to do more. And that's what most Palestinians were telling me, right? It's good of you to come, but your job is actually whatever, in London, in Belgium, in France. It's not here, right? So yeah, I got more and more into it, and that's about it. And that's and then it took over my life, really, I think, for many years.
Yeah, and we were just discussing before how you got banned. So you've been there, and all your work has sort of has been great towards the Palestinians and showed the reality and truth about Israel to the point where they've said, "Hey, excuse me, you can't come back."
Yeah, and it's happening more and more. I mean, and I don't think they're very. I mean, I don't think they're like super organized, because I know many friends that have done lots of books and stuff on Palestine, and that still sort of get in. But I also know many friends over the last 5-10 years that have been denied entry, and some of the friends were just having sort of been invited to the whatever Jerusalem Book Fair to present a book, and they were denied entry.
Oh.
So, but I think that in a way, I'm trying to find the positive in being denied entry and stuff. And obviously, my story in my case is nothing compared to actually Palestinians that are being denied entry, and like friends of mine, like in the last years and stuff. But I think that when it's like when a lion is cornered, right? He's pushed into a corner. It tends to react in a crazy way, right? And I think maybe, and I hope so, that's where Israel is now. Israel knows it's lost the sort of moral argument, so they just realize with like blatant violence, and they do crazy things like denying lots of people, including Chomsky was denied entry. I remember Archbishop Desmond Tutu, like an amazing figure of the entire apartheid struggle in South Africa, told me when he went there, like he was treated like horribly. So I think, inshallah, that's why they're doing that. I mean, I'm trying to find the positives. I'm not really sure.
I think, Frank, that is a positive. As you said, the lion, when it's cornered, it strikes out. And one of the things that Zionism hasn't been able to reconcile is how a people, when faced with a nuclear power and money and resources and support from all of the colonialist powers, be they Britain, France, the United States, etc., how can these people just not give up? And they haven't realized that the concept of the Palestinians, steadfastness, samud, that the love of the land is greater than the love of life. And in that equation, whether it be Vietnam or otherwise, in anti-colonial struggles, which is what the Palestinians are going through, it's a zero-sum game. You make peace or you lose. There's just no two ways.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you said about your journey to Palestine, and specifically Palestine in itself was a prism, as you can see the whole world. And John Pilger did a movie called Palestine is Still the Issue. On Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday, they started the Julian Assange trial in London. I was watching the news here, and of course, there was a Palestinian flag there. And I thought to myself, here's the reality. Wherever there is injustice, there's always a Palestinian with a Palestinian flag. And it's because we know what injustice is innately. And if you're a human with a sense of wanting to right the things, you understand that, in fact, Palestine's the nexus of it, whether it be the fight against anti-colonialism, the fight against capitalism, the fight against might is right, and the reduction of an indigenous people to peasanthood. Palestine's the answer. The fact that you went there, and from there, and the thing that most excites me, because I'm part of Australians for Palestine. I remember getting the email from your organization when you created the Russell Tribunal. Can you take us through that?
I mean, to go back to what you were saying, you see it all over, right? The fact that Palestine is in a way a microcosm of what's happening in the world, or what could happen in the world in terms of lack of democracy and reproduction in a way of the occupation if we don't rise up, right? You see it in Ferguson for Black Lives Matter. You see, I mean, the sort of the militarization of the police all over the world, takes Israel as an example, right? And what shocks me every time there is an uprising, or if there is terrorist attacks in France and stuff, you can be sure that on TV, on the radio and stuff, you will have an Israeli expert, and that's really shocking to me, because I mean, as activists, we are arguing that Israel is not democracy, right? But in fact, Israel might be the model for democracies for the future, right? If we don't do anything about it. So that's why, I mean, I think it's, as you said, Nasser, it's sort of very sort of intersectional, and in a way, all struggles should be sort of
Intertwined.
Joined, intertwined. Yeah, exactly. As far as the I mean, in a way, the Russell Tribunal in Palestine, which started actually in 2008, we had our first sort of session in 2008, was some kind of a response to the impunity that Israel is granted, and also the role of third states and third parties in making Israel totally immune to its violation of international law, international human rights law, etc. The people that actually created the tribunal had been involved with the Vietnam tribunal because
it went back years, didn't it? The original tribunal.
Yeah, exactly. Towards the end of the 70s, Bertrand Russell and Jean-Paul Sartre were created the Russell Tribunal on Vietnam. And so we thought that because most of the states around the world not only are inactive when it comes to Palestine, but actually are very proactive in supporting Israel, we citizens should do something about it. And in a way, in the dock during the tribunal was not really Israel. It was like, the US, the UN, corporations, the EU, that are enabling Israel to continue its occupation, its ethnic cleansing of Palestine land. So that was the idea of the tribunal, and also the idea was to put people together and to also join, as we just mentioned, struggles. So we had, Angela Davis from obviously the Black Civil Rights Movement. We had the late Dennis Banks, who was the founder of the American Indian Movement. We tried to sort of argue that everything was related, and that in a way the struggle will be endless, right? Because I mean, even when Palestine, let's say, will be free, we'll have to continue struggling for something else, unfortunately. But
well, we're hoping that Palestine's the domino, or perhaps it might be,
exactly.
Ferguson might be the domino. I read an article today that was written by Yannick Giovanni Marshall, and he speaks about the violence in America, and he says on Kenosha and the difficulty of recognizing Nazism in the United States. In fact, Hitler modeled Nazism on the supremacist ideology of the Americans. So it might be that our liberation comes from there, the blatant racism that exists there.
Just before we go away from the Russell Tribunal, it went for a couple of years. Did it gain momentum? Was there more people involved? Did it get more of a viewage worldwide as it got on?
So it's really a long story, and I think a long answer. As coordinator myself of the tribunal, I've been, it started in 2008 and we finished in 2014. Yeah. So that's 6 years. I think what it created is definitely sort of, it helped reinforce the network and also between activists, between scholars, between lawyers, between jurists, and between celebrities. And that's something that was amazing. In terms of the impact, I think our session in South Africa, in Cape Town, on Israel is Israel an apartheid state, was very successful, and I think we helped push the notion that Israel was an apartheid state, but not only in the West Bank, but also in Israel 48. Because I mean, a lot of people legally had argued that yes, you could potentially do the apartheid analogy for the West Bank, but they never talked about Israel 48, Palestine 48. But we argued that Israel and the Israeli Jews had actually impacted Palestinians all over, even in diaspora and stuff. So we argued that actually Israel was an apartheid state, even in the sort of 48 borders. Then I mean, there's a lot of stuff I'm not really happy with, not because we didn't do things well, I think, but I mean, the media coverage I thought could have been a lot better. But that's obviously also, I mean, they ignore you, right, when you sort of scare them. So yeah, I mean, there's, but I think we did create also a source of knowledge. I mean, the reports of the tribunal, I know, are actually used at the Human Rights Council now and then. I know the ICC, like John Dugan, who worked with us, is also involved in the ICC case against Israel. So overall, I think it was important. But I mean, obviously, Palestine is still under the cosh of Israel, so it's not, you know.
I mean, if people are looking for something
Anyway.
to refer to or watch a video, it's a great idea to go to the Russell Tribunal, and you'll have all the experts speaking on different subjects. So
Yeah.
people should utilise it. I mean, it's a great body of work that you guys did.
So the website's there, and all the
Thanks.
resources are there. Russell Tribunal on Palestine.com, and you can certainly look at the Cape Town resolutions and the findings that are there. So that was an immense body of work, and congratulations on that front.
Thanks, mate.
You've been an activist your whole life. What form is your activism for Palestine taking today?
You know what? That's also something that I'm sort of frustrated about right now, because as you mentioned, like you know, a couple of minutes ago, I was denied entry in 2013. We, you know, they weren't really clear, but I think it's for 10 years. I haven't been sort of in Palestine for a long time now, and I do miss it a lot. And Rob, I don't know when was the last time you went, but when I came back from Palestine the first time, my friends were very worried about me. They were like, "Fuck, you know, Palestine." Sorry for swearing. Palestine is a you know, it's a war zone and stuff. And I was also a bit worried, you know, despite watching documentaries and stuff. I was like, "Damn, you know, I'm going to a rough place." And when I came back and I met my friends and my family and stuff, they were like, "How was it?" And I couldn't stop smiling. Yeah. I was like, despite the hardship, despite the occupation, the checkpoints, the violence, I had the best 10 days of the last few years. I mean, the people were so amazing, so lovely. And I felt this community, this family and stuff. And so
that's exactly how I felt.
think
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you know, international activists, I think when they come back from Palestine, they come back changed really. And the sense of humor as well. People don't realize how funny Palestinians are, you know, and so.
Yeah, one of them said to me, because I remember saying, "I can't believe how happy you are." Because, you know, I mean, it's a horrific scene that you live in. And, you know, they said, "What else do we have? I mean, what else do we have? We're at least we're breathing. Exactly. We may die tomorrow. Let's just have fun."
But anyway, so yeah, I haven't been back for a long time. And I feel now my activism is a bit of a, like, you know, there's a lot of like social media activism or, you know, sending petitions, getting people to sign letters. And
it's not the same though, is it?
Like, let's just say, yeah, exactly. I don't really feel like an activist right now, even though obviously everything is important and we're organizing campaigns and we're doing lots of stuff that is sort of in the background that people don't know about, you know, writing op-eds for The Guardian with people signing it and writing on books. And I'm actually working on a documentary on Palestine. I've been working on it for about 4 years now. Inshallah, we've got a year left at max, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like I should be on the front line and carrying weapons and stuff, right? But still, there's something that doesn't feel. It feels like some kind of a luxury activism, just being home and mostly on the computer and organizing meetings and stuff. But I guess I mean it's important as well.
As those Palestinians told you when you're on the ground, your job is to go back and be our mouth to the West. Whilst it is so, the warmth of the Palestinian, the hospitality of that part of the world is so overwhelming. Our job as advocates for Palestine, when we're not actually there, is in fact to speak to the world of the injustice, to act as, you know, Pied Pipers, to get people to follow us, because what we need is an international broad-based coalition. We need to do to Israel what we did to South Africa: boycott, divest, and sanction. How is the BDS movement in Brussels?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously totally agree. And I mean, the BDS movement in Brussels is active, definitely. I mean, Brussels and Belgium is quite a small country, so it's less. There's less media around it, and it's less, you know, you see less than from London, for example, or New York. But, you know, there's like a few groups. There's also academic boycott group that is trying to, you know, we recruit academics and people at university to sign letters and stuff. And there's a few actions organized, you know, every now and then there's demonstrations. there is a place that I helped create, but that I've not been involved with for the last few years, called Cafe Palestine.
Nice.
Because we thought that every time you talk about Palestine, it's mostly in a sort of university format or in a meeting format where you have experts and then people listening. And we thought that what about talking about Palestine with a coffee, a beer, or whatever in your hand in a sort of a nice sort of cozy cafe or bar. So we created that at least 5-6 years ago now, and we invite people to have a chat with people, but really around a coffee or whatever people drink, and it makes it for a lot, a sort of a friendlier experience, at least for people that don't know about Palestine and feel like, I mean, I've had lots of friends tell me like, look, I don't know any resolutions. I don't know what's the resolution 182 is. And I'm like, yeah, who gives a damn? You don't need to do that to be involved with Palestine. So yeah, there's stuff happening in Brussels. Even though, and because I've not been involved with the BDS group for a few months and stuff, I feel there's not enough. But it's maybe understandable because people, I mean, obviously with COVID and the rest, have a lot of stuff to worry about. But
and the reality, the Zionist lobby is so very strong in the EU. We know too well, King Leopold and his crimes in Africa. I know that the Parliament, they passed an apology or a sorry. Is that something that is being leveraged, or is there an opportunity there with, we were once colonialists, what we did, this is what's happening?
Yeah. Actually, it is. Yeah. And actually, they're going to rename. There is a tunnel, like a road that, a tunnel you can take with your cars to sort of shorten your journey, called Tunnel Leopold II. And I was reading today that it's going to be renamed, and they've put a panel of citizens from all walks of life and stuff to actually find a new name for this tunnel. So there is this, at least on the activist part, because in a way, the backlash coming from people that, the sort of cancel culture, or the people that say, oh, now, like, white culture, whatever, white people are going to be cancelled from history and stuff, which is crazy and sickening, is also happening. And I mean, these type of people, I tend to sort of, I'm not saying own the media, but they always, on TV and stuff, saying that, yeah, obviously we understand that, brown and black people should have rights, but why would you, cancel the history of Belgium? And, why would you, whatever, broke or whatever, a statue of Leopold II? And so there is this discussion, but I think it's happening all over the world right now, right? And but it's important to push for and to understand what white privilege is, right? Because I mean, it's tough. I've got to say, it's a tough thing to understand that even if you're not wealthy, even if you're not, in the high sphere of like political life or something, being white make you privileged compared to, at least in Europe, compared to being black, brown, or Hispanic or something. And that's something like, as privileged people, you should acknowledge that and give it back, right? Or at least give some of it back. But people find it very hard.
It's incredible that they find it so hard to actually just acknowledge or admit. I mean, it's pretty easy to establish it.
Well, they find it hard. I mean, in the United States, they're tearing down Confederate statues. These are people who fought a civil war. The country fought itself because they wanted the right to own people. In Dixieland, we want to own people, slavery. That Confederate flag today, it's synonymous with the Israeli flag, but they're out there going, but this is our heritage. How could you want to maintain a link to heritage that was so barbaric? Surely at some point you atone and then endeavor to move forward. That's why there should be no Leopold Tunnel. There should be no Leopold anything. Now, Frank, you have written a number of books and you've edited a number of books. Your most recent one is We Still Here by Mark Lamont Hill, who's a fantastic friend of Palestine and a fantastic African-American. Can you tell us about that book?
Yeah, so we actually, when sort of the lockdown started here in Belgium, which was, I think, mid-March, I sort of thought about ways to sort of, being stuck at home, sort of do things that could be useful. So I started like a series of interviews that I've called COVID-19 Chronicles. So I was doing sort of...
It's really good.
Let's say like video podcasts with people first, which was sort of very focused on COVID-19, understanding what it was. So I spoke to a lot of doctors, epidemiologists, nurses, and slowly, because COVID in a way acted like a help me out, acted like, like revealed what was all the sort of stuff that was going wrong with society in a huge way. I started to broaden the interview. So I spoke to Angela Davis and to Noam Chomsky and others. And I did a few interviews with Mark, who is, as you said, like an author, academic, and journalist. He's 43 years old, very active. He's got a bookshop in Philly, in the US, where he's doing lots of amazing stuff. And after the interview, like Mark and I were like, hey, why won't you, maybe we should do a book of interviews, related to what's happening in the US, white supremacy, Black Lives Matter, the abolition of jails and prisons and the police. So we did this very quickly, because I think we started like 3 months ago. We did like interviews after interviews after interviews. And then Haymarket Books, which is an amazing publishing house, very radical in the US, agreed to publish it. So and to push it so to come out very fast. So yeah, it's coming out November 10th, and it's about what can we do to actually end all the sort of, not all the ills of society, but at least this sort of racist white supremacy that, because I mean the left is getting drowned, but we cannot sort of fool ourselves, right? I mean, in the US, and you can see in Europe as well, the hard right, the fascist right, is also gaining ground, and then more and more. I mean, you can hear. I mean, honestly, I can hear racist comments on the bus, in the streets, that I've never heard before. People used to be silent about it, right? Now, because of Trump, Bolsonaro and stuff, they're like, hey, the president is saying racist stuff, so maybe we can say it as well. So, yeah, exactly. And it's very scary. You go, damn, how can you say this in front of people without realizing how fucking sickening, sickening it is, right? You'll have to beep me.
No, it's crystal nacht all over again. Whether it's Ferguson or Kenosha or George Floyd or, shooting a guy 6 times in the back, this is just crazy shit.
And what's stunning as well, like to me, is that it keeps happening. I mean, after George Floyd, I mean, if I was a police officer, I'll go like, shit, I'm gonna remain a bit calm now. And
people are watching.
And after George Floyd, yeah, and I mean, after George, it keeps happening, and you go, it shows how ingrained the racism and the impunity is, because cops keep shooting.
Yeah, it's at a subconscious level.
Like it's
that
exactly,
deep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got that kid in America, who's 17 years old. His mum drives him across a state border. He open carries a gun he's not legally allowed to do. An automatic weapon. He fires into a crowd. He kills 3 people or 2 people. The police give him a bottle of water and drive him home.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, and this guy wanted to be a cop. Well, he should have just waited to become a cop, and then he could have killed.
And then 2 people
for free.
Yeah.
But the fact that he did it as a kid, and then the president says, he didn't do anything wrong. He was just trying to protect property. You go, what?
But that's actually something we're talking about in the book, that in a way the ancestor of the police in the US were the slave patrols. Yeah. So you realize that police are not really here to protect you. They're here to protect property, and property can be a black man, a slave, or can be something else. But and it's the same in France as well. I mean, there's been whistleblowers every day, not every day, every month, coming out explaining how racism is ingrained in the French police, because the French police used to be pro French Algeria and the rest. So it's something we really have to dismantle. But
Frank, we've run out of time. Thank you so very much, and we hope to have you back on one day soon.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you so much. And that was Frank Barat, who's a human rights activist and author. He's the coordinator of the Russell Tribunal on Palestine and is now the president of the Palestine Legal Action Network. His books include Gaza in Crisis, Corporate Complicity in Israel's Occupation and on Palestine, and his most recently edited Mark Lamont Hill's book, We Still Here. I'm sure you'll agree, a fantastic advocate for Palestine. And remember to share the podcast, tell your friends, and there's never been a better time to free Palestine.